Welcome to Plot Recon, where thrillers get tactical. I'm your host, Evan Graver. Today I'm joined by Luke Richardson, the author behind the global spanning Leo and Allison international detective thrillers and the Eden Black archaeological series. Luke's work is built on movement, crime, history, and danger unfolding in back alleys and forgotten ruins where readers will never see firsthand. Before becoming a full time writer, Luke lived a kind of life that feeds his fiction, traveling widely, DJing, teaching English overseas, and chasing the kind of cultural sparks that show up across his books. That real world exposure to different environments, rhythms, and people is what gives his thrillers their immersive sense of place. Welcome to the show, Luke.
Evan, thank you so much. What an introduction. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. You've got it. Fantastic.
I had one guy say, "You should follow me around and introduce me like that all the
Yeah,
time."
absolutely. Absolutely. And you
So,
make my life sound so exciting. I was thinking, who is this guy talking about?
So you've lived and worked abroad in a lot of places that most people aren't ever going to travel to. So, what country or moment abroad did shaped your kind of the stories that you write now?
Yeah, good question. Unfortunately, as of yet, I haven't lived anywhere else other than England, where I live now. Although my wife and I do spend 3 or 4 months out of every year not at home. She often jokes that I'm always looking for why do we even bother having such a nice house, because I'm always looking for reasons not to be here, to try and go somewhere else and be somewhere new. But for me, that's just part of the creative process. That is part of what drives me. What ideas I put into the books, and I never really know exactly how such and such a trip or such and such a place is going to become a story, but it just happens to. I'm walking down this street, and all of a sudden I see a thing, and it's like that should be an archaeological thriller. I wonder where that came from, and I do a little bit of research behind the scenes and find a story about this thing, and I'm like, right, that needs to go in a story. So there is a direct link for me between being out on the road, seeing stuff, doing stuff, having those beers in the backstreet bar, or spending the night on the overnight train between two places, that's no doubt delayed, and actually putting that into words.
Yeah, I think it's being able to get out there and actually see that location firsthand gives you yourself and the reader a better sense of the place. And um, there's only so much you can do looking at Google Maps without going there and seeing it for yourself.
Yeah, and Google Maps is fantastic, to be fair. I often talk to writers who are writing their first book or their second book or whatever, and they say, "How do you put this in the story?" And Google Maps can be a good one to get if it's somewhere you can't go, to get the inference of the place, to know how long it would take to get from X to Y, or how the place sort of comes together. But of course, nothing beats actually walking those streets, being in that place, smelling the cooking spices, and the whatever whatever the place is, putting that in the book.
Yeah, that's the smell is always the one that always gets me. Is that you can look at a place on Google Maps all day long, but until you go there, um, we were probably I have a perfect example. We went down to the Florida Keys and we're eating at a restaurant that my character eats at, and the smell was what there was a distinct odor of raw sewage in the air from the marina that just never shows up on Google Maps.
That's true, yeah, and probably for good reason, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're sort of ruining the sometimes perhaps the reality isn't quite like it looks in the books, does it? When you're
Yeah.
plagued by mosquitoes is another one, because they don't appear in our books. If you're setting them in the Caribbean area, there's always bugs around, isn't there, that you're fighting against, but that never happens in the stories.
That's right. So before you became an author, you were a DJ. So
Hmm.
does that affect your rhythm or style or how you build tension in a story?
I don't actually know. That's a really interesting question. I and I've tried to incorporate music into the books in certain ways. There's a book in which my book that's set in Berlin Underground, it's called, where one of the scenes takes place in a nightclub that I liked, that I enjoyed when I was there. So, sort of describing the music and putting that in this sort of upbeat electronic music that's adding extra tension because the characters can't really hear each other. It's dark, it's hot, all these things that nightclubs can be. So that sort of drives the story. I wouldn't say that it affects the story particularly. I don't think that's been a sort of transferable skill. Although I think certainly doing something like that is creative, it's individual, it's you're working alone, even though you're in a group of people, you're working on your own. All of these things are things that you also need to do as a writer.
Yeah, that's definitely not every skill set transitions into being a writer, and even though we
No,
want it to. So,
no, that's true.
so what got you started in wanting to travel and observe all this stuff and then write about it?
It's a good question. I've always liked the idea of travel. I always remember sort of reading about these fantastical lands in books, the names of which I've forgotten when I was younger, and learning about these sorts of things. And then I first went with a friend to India in 2011, and that was the trip that really sort of inspired me. And it's this idea that life can be so different, but yet so similar at the same time, right? People are just being people. They're doing their thing. They're going to work. They're feeding their kids. They're doing whatever they have to do to doing the washing or making dinner or whatever, you know. But yet they're doing it in a completely different way to what we would do in England, and I imagine a lot of listeners would do as well. So it's just that sort of seeing sort of the other side of the coin, and sort of peeking behind someone else's life, that I just absolutely loved. And I love that idea that that we are just sort of that it's all there, it's all happening all at once, and just to see that and to be exposed to that, to me, was a really inspiring and powerful thing. And it's that sort of excitement, it's that sort of intrigue and wonder that I felt when I was first there, almost sort of culture shocked. I think it probably was, looking back. It's that sort of feeling that I want my readers to have when they pick up one of my books and think like, wow, they're really enthralled by the place that they find themselves in. That's my aim as a writer.
Okay. So, what got you started writing thrillers? What has it always had an interest in them? Watched movies, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I've always enjoyed that sort of story. And now looking back, and I'm sure you're the same, you can sort of see that as a through line in what you used to enjoy.
Yeah.
I remember watching the X Files. I loved the X Files, and whilst my thrillers aren't really they don't have that sci-fi element. There is like a mysterious, how did this happen? Sort of, is this even possible? Sort of fantastical element to them. Um, yeah, I remember that. I also I also wanted to write stories that are very exciting. I don't think I wanted to write. Some people you talk to, and I'm sure you've had them on the podcast, who set out to write the next great novel. They want to write a book that's really important, that illustrates the human condition from their perspective. That's brilliant. I'm not criticizing anyone who sets out to do that. I don't think I ever did. Right? I wanted my stories to be fun and to be interesting, and to take people to an interesting place on the way. That was my intention, anyway.
Okay. And I actually don't know anybody that's ever set out to write the great,
Oh, really?
I don't know what we would call over here the great American novel, but we're
Yeah.
not trying to be John Steinbeck or you know we we're in the entertainment business, and
Agreed.
writing
Yeah.
those novels that transport people to a different time, a different place, and just take them away from their everyday life is what most people aim to do with their fiction.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And it's a great compliment, isn't it, when you get an email that says, I was in the doctor's office or waiting for something in a not very nice situation, to be fair, whatever it might be, and they they opened your book and that took them somewhere, and they say how that got them through that tough time. I find that so heartwarming to know that the books have that impact on people.
Have you had emails from people who said, I've traveled to this place and you absolutely nailed it?
Yes, and that's another of my favorite things. One that I love, particularly when people do that, is when they tell me then about when they went, and they can be quite a long time ago. I've had people saying I was there in 1962, and you've captured the description of this place, and I went 50 years later. That there were still things that were like enough for this person to say it, and they said it reminded them of um, like this gap year that they'd taken before college or after whatever, before they started their job and all of this. And I think writing books in places like that then has it's also that ability to take someone back to somewhere that they have been before, right? You're taking them down
Right.
memory lane. They are that 19-year-old again, going out of their country for the first time, seeing a different civilization for the first time, seeing how people act and behave in that place for the first time, and those memories in that situation have lived with them for the whole of for the whole of their lives now. So,
Yeah.
and if my books can bring that back, that's a really exciting thing for me, I think.
It is. It's, travel is one of those things where, you know, it evokes a lot of emotion in people. And if you've
Mm,
been to a place or you're planning on going to a place, it's just to be able to go there and see it and live it firsthand is always very evocative for me. And even, and I try to say, you know, everybody sets an expectation of what the place is going to be like before they get there, and I've learned over the years that it's never what you expect, and to just that aside and experience the place as it is.
mm, exactly right, exactly right. And whether that's the smell of the restaurant in the Florida Keys, or the hassle you get from all the salespeople around the Great Pyramid in Egypt, or the actual frustrations of walking through that particular street in Tokyo because it's so busy. It's whatever it is different, and it's you've sort of got to be open to that, haven't you? I think.
Yeah, I years ago when I was with the U.S. Navy and we went to Bahrain, which is a little tiny island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. And when you think about that region, there's a lot of times when you think, oh, it's like Indiana Jones. There's going to be tent cities and people on camels and this and that. And we landed there, and it completely different. It's just like walking into New York City and all the high rises and it's because it's a giant banking capital, and just
Oh,
completely blew my expectations away. So
yeah,
it
yeah.
was an incredible place to visit, and I don't know if I want to go back, but it was a lot of fun when we were there.
Yeah, and you learn, don't you, over the course of time, which places you'd love to revisit, and those that actually are you're all right not to go if that happens,
Yeah, yeah. So how do you keep your sense of momentum and pace while intertwining these settings with your characters?
You mean in terms of my writing process, or in terms of the pace within the story?
Your writing process, the pace within the story. How do you keep that
Anyway.
fiction tight?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So the most important thing for me is to remember that whilst the setting is important, the story trumps everything. The story is king. And I fell in my earlier books. I did fall into this trap, and now I talk about it quite frequently, which is to make sure that if you put a detail in, it's there for a reason. And you don't overwhelm the reader with just sort of an information dump of loads of description of every single thing that's in that restaurant or that place, every single sound or every single smell that you can hear. You pick one or pick two, and you keep referring back to the same one throughout that scene, because then the reader picks up on it more. If that smell of the sewage from the marina was there, you're not going to smell it once. You're going to smell it constantly throughout the dinner, aren't you? As soon as someone walks past or the door opens, a breeze comes through, it brings it in again, and you're smelling it again, and you keep working that through. So you use that as like a through line in the whole scene. Yeah. So remember that really the story has to be the most important part. That moves the action forward, and all that setting stuff is just sort of making it sing along the way, giving it some spice and some flavor along the way.
Now, when you're doing those setting kind of things, are you said you just pick one or two, but I've heard that if you invoke all five of the senses, it really pulls the reader into that setting. Is that what you're aiming for too?
Yeah, but not all at once. So I'm not saying go into the room and then say, I see this, I smell that, I hear this, I, da, 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 not, you don't throw them all in at once. You might put them in with the action. So, for
Yeah.
example, you and I are sitting over dinner together, and I can't hear you because an aeroplane's just taken off from the airfield behind us, or whatever, wherever we might be. Now that will become part of an action. So I'm like, sorry, pardon? Or you make it a funny moment that you said, can you pass this? And I think you said something completely different because the noise happened. So you layer all of those details about the sound and the smell into the thing that's going on in the scene, not so as to make them relevant. They're part of the story. They're not just like an add-on. They're essential parts of the story.
Right. Absolutely. So when you decided to write, and were you looking just to go into Kindle Unlimited? Did you look at doing some sort of wide thing, or what was your thought process there?
Yeah, good question. To start with, I think like all of us, I just didn't know what I was doing. It's not until you learn these things that you even know what they mean, do you? Yeah. So I think for the first year, I tried to do the wide thing, and I put all my books everywhere, although I didn't have many at that time. And then after that, I just realised that it was too there were too many plates. There was too many things going on all at once. So I took the
Yeah.
decision. Excuse me. So I decided at that point, for my own focus and just being able to concentrate on the most important thing, which is writing great stories and researching great stories and putting those stories out to the biggest number of people I possibly can, I decided to go with the KU, the Kindle Unlimited route. And it's worked well for me actually because it means that I can do those things that I want to do. We travel quite a lot, so we're not around to be doing sort of shipping stuff or re-uploading books to loads of different platforms. It very much simplifies the process. So for me that works. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Do you do
No,
Kindle Unlimited or are you?
I started my career in Kindle Unlimited, and then I went wide, and my focus lately has been selling direct.
Mm,
But I'm gonna I have three series. I'm gonna put one in Kindle Unlimited just to see how things go, and so I think it works as your hybrid. It can work both ways.
yes, yes.
Mark Dawson. I'm sure you're familiar with Mark. He's a fellow Brit. He likes to go wide for 90 days and then pull
Mm,
everything into KU. Um, that works for him, and other people are strictly wide. So I think it's a good combination to have both, especially if you have multiple series and you're um, if you can concentrate on being wide. And but if people like you do, say this is where I'm concentrating, and that's great. And I don't discourage anybody from taking the path that they need to take to get
mm.
to be a profitable author, because that's why we're here, right? And we're here to help each other and give advice and work together.
Yes, exactly right, exactly right. And I think you're on the money there by saying, just sound out what works for you. Because what suits me probably doesn't suit you or anyone else who's a writer. You pick your things very specifically because they suit you. I think having one in KU would be really useful, wouldn't it? Because I imagine you'll get readers in there who will like your style and then join your newsletter, and or
Yeah.
maybe pick up one of your books that's like a free one, or a cheaper one, and then be drawn into that series that they might have to pay for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just a giant circle. You're trying to make the money and pay the bills and, keep that travel budget flowing, right?
That's right. That's
So
exactly it. That's exactly it. That's an expensive hobby, I'm sorry to say.
I think anything you take up nowadays is an expensive hobby, but
Yeah, true.
so so how much does KU read through influence what you're going to write next? Do you worry about that? Do you just write stories that you want to read, or do you worry about how they're going to affect readership?
Somewhere in the middle is where I go for. I write stories that I want to read, but I write the stories that I want to read that also I think will resonate with people that have already read mine. You know, I've always been toying for years now. I've been toying with the idea of branching out and doing a more sort of cozy mystery series. Haven't done it yet. I might do one day, because all the while the action adventure books are selling, and I'm enjoying writing them. I feel like whilst the going's good, just concentrate on the thing that's working. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a way to do it. That's a good idea. That said, I think if I wouldn't recommend anyone, and I certainly wouldn't write a book that I didn't like, because you'd get so burnt out with that, wouldn't you? You know, if someone said to you or I, go and write a romantasy or a romance book or something like this, could I do it? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to say that it's difficult or easy or whatever. Maybe. The point is, I'm not interested to read that book. I'm not interested to watch those sorts of films or learn about those sorts of stories. So I don't think that would be for me. Give me
Yeah.
a secret civilization, or an ancient curse, or a lost artifact, or a manuscript that is from a pre-Diluvian world, and I'm like, yes, that's for me. That's the books that I want to write at the moment, at least.
And I think that once you find that niche and you have that series, especially in KU, the longer the series is, the more read through you're going to have, better your income is going to be. And um,
Oh, massively,
I,
yeah.
yeah, I think that cozy mystery and romance, there's a larger readership there. But if you're not, you know, interested in writing those types of books, it's going to be hard for you to do it consistently. And I think it will come through in the end on the reader's end too.
Yeah, yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. I always see it as like a Venn diagram, with the two circles, one of which is what readers want. What's the market saying? What genres are popular, and then the other one is what you like. What are
Yeah.
you interested in doing? And the little bit in the middle, which is both of those things, is where you're interested. And someone like yourself is lucky enough to have various interests, so you have all these different series going on at once.
No, they're all thriller genre. They're all
Right? Yeah.
I tell people it's all the same character. You just turn up different traits.
Mm.
Maybe one guy is kind of ambivalent. He doesn't want to kill people. The next guy has no problem doing it. So it's I think all the characters are come out of your personality and they have traits that you have, and it's sometimes difficult to write outside of that personality.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that. What was? Although I said something similar. I can't remember where the situation was, but I said something similar to someone, and they said, "Even the bad guys, do they come out of your personality too?" And I had to stop and think about that, and I suppose I asked the same question to you. What do you think about the bad guys being part of you as much as the good guys?
Well, I think that we all have sides of us that we repress, we don't show, that society has told us that aren't supposed to be there. And, sometimes writing a book lets that come through, and maybe it's an outlet for that bad guy to show up and get to play, and you blow off some steam that way.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And also, I think the antagonists, the bad guys that are the best, are the ones that we can understand a little bit. You know, we're not saying that they're right, but we're saying you've got a point somewhere in there. You're going about it the wrong way. You know,
Yeah.
your methods are wrong, but your motivation I can sort of understand, and I think they're very much they make the proper good antagonist in my opinion. I try to make mine like that. I hope I succeed, but I try at least.
I think that you're right, and I think everybody tries to, build something into their antagonist so that they're relatable. Otherwise, it's just, I don't. You sometimes you want to root for the antagonist, uh, but so how does that work for you when you're moving forward? And you do have two series. Do you have separate funnels for those series? Are you keeping two email lists? Is it combined because it's in the thriller genre, or do you find that different people like different series?
No, I have them all as one pen name because they're close enough that I think there is a crossover. And I've just started another series with another author called the Airborne Adventures, Nora Bird's Airborne Adventure series. Here it is, The Shadow of the Sunstone on the back. All about it's set in the Caribbean. It's all about sort of aircraft and funny things like that. So whilst it's not exactly the same as mine, there's still because the setting is more consistent. There's still sort of the adventure. There's still the action. You know, there is enough crossover that they all fit into one bucket there, and that for me is important going forwards because I don't want to start doing the whole two newsletters, two pen names, two lots
Yeah.
of all that would just be really hard work, wouldn't it? I think keep it very simple, keep it very straightforward. One sort of body of work in my mind for what I produce.
So are you're starting a new series? Are you looking to do rapid release, or is it kind of a slow thing, depending upon how your schedules line up?
Yeah, it's all quite slow. I take quite a long time to write. Well, in the tradition, in like the modern sense, I take quite a long time to write. I know people that write a book a month. That's not me. So I'll probably do one of my Eden Black books a year. I'll probably do one with John, the co-writer on that other series a year, and I may do one other. So maybe three, maybe at a push, 4 books a year. But that's about as far as I want to stretch things.
I think I've written as many as 5 or 6 books in a year, and it's a lot.
Hmm.
You know, if you set up, I've been able to write a book in a month and a half, but it's never, it's all, you always have the editorial time, and you always have, the
Yeah.
cover design, and it's all that stuff. So it's
Well, this is it,
hard
isn't it?
work, and
Because
yeah,
you can write if you sit down and you write. Okay, you get several thousand words done right in a day, and then your mind goes, huh? So that's about 10,000 words a week. So that means I can write one of these in 2 months. So 4 a year, easy, no
yeah,
problem. You know, I could do
yeah.
more than that. I could do 6 a year. But as you say, it never works that way because of all of the other things that you need to do and whatever else. And we're people, we're creatives. It doesn't. It's not like turning on a tap and filling a bucket, is it? You've got to do something to get that creativity to flow in the first place. I think.
Yeah. Do you? I had a question in there. I think it
Sorry.
was no. I can't remember. I was going to ask you about release schedule and how long it takes you to write the book, or So what do when you're traveling, does it take you a while to write, or are you really dedicated every day?
I probably write 3 or 4 days a week. I've sort of got my habit now. 3 or 4 days a week for about 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours a time, and I probably do about 10,000 words a week. That said, once the book is then in first draft, then I've got to go through and do an edit, and then probably another edit. Then it goes to the editor, and it comes back, and I have to do that, and so on. So there's a lot of other work that isn't just doing that first draft writing.
Yeah. Do
So
you, when you're immersed in writing the book, is it one of those things where you put off doing other stuff, or, is it hard to find that balance between, oh, I got to write a newsletter today and,
yeah, well,
all that?
that's why I find the 3 or 4 days a week really works for me. And I don't know. I'm interested to know your experience, but for me, that means that on the other days I can do the newsletter, do the Facebook ads or the Facebook posts or whatever else, other business stuff that we need to do, is reply to all those emails that I love getting, but do take some time to reply to, you know.
Yeah.
And,
I,
and then on those first days, just have the time focused on the screen, doing the work, whether that's here in my office or wherever we happen to be.
yeah, I find that if I'm really pushing to get a book done, everything else goes by the wayside, and it's
Mm,
just concentrate on writing. And sometimes it's, I get those 2,000, my goal is always 2,000 words a day. Sometimes it comes and I get more. Sometimes I can get, you know, 5 or 6,000 words if I'm writing action and the scenes are intense. But if you're writing that bridge where it's slower, you're building the plot, you're doing all that, then it becomes more of a struggle, and, it's fewer words per day for me. But
mm,
no,
yeah, and that's the law of average, isn't it?
yeah,
You can never know exactly how it's going to go. And sometimes I write a bit out of order as well. I don't know if you do that. So I'll skip through a section because I just want to find out what happens at the end. I don't know what's I sort of discover the book as I'm writing. Whilst I have an idea of the general nebulous area that we're going in, I don't know quite how it's all going to move together. So I have to sort of figure that out as I go through, and that means that there can be a bit of flip flopping from um, writing a bit, then thinking, oh no, I need to change that bit that was in chapter 2, you know. So because they need to, if they've got a gun here or a relic of some kind here, they need to have found it there. So I need to
yep,
then go back and put that thing in. So there can be a bit of that sort of forward and back. um I would love to be able to do the let's write a plan and stick to it. I tried it once, and by the second like quarter of the way through, I'd figured a much better plan and was following that. So I've realised that don't fight it. People clearly like them as they are. So just sort of lean into what works.
yeah. I tend to like write linearly. I like, but I have some bullet points or plot points set out, and I note, I try to figure out how the story is going to end and just fill in between point A and point B. But to me, I have to write in a straight line, and I've tried to head and jump around from scene to scene, and it always ends up kind of chaotic, and
Yeah.
I end up rewriting more than what I should. So,
Yeah, I
but
know. And this is a lesson I learned with, you were asked this question a minute ago, with my latest book, The Sahara Event. I'm pointing here because it's actually on the desk next to me. This is really good. I've got all of the books to show viewers here, Evan, around me.
it's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah. So this one, it took me longer than I wanted because I had some other projects going on, including the book with John there. And so I wrote a bit, stepped away, did something, came back, wrote a bit more. Then we had a family trip. So we had 2 weeks away, came back. And so next year, 2026, as we're recording now, I've vowed to not to do one thing and do it until it's done, and then do something else, because just dropping in and out of a project is hard work and messy and distracting.
It is. So when you're writing those projects and you're working on that KU strategy, what kind of metrics are you interested in? Are you looking at page reads, series completions, or what are you looking at to bolster your read through?
It's a good question. Mostly, I look at the earnings. I look at profit. So spend on ads to the earnings, total income minus the
Yeah.
spend on the ads. That's the most important thing to me. I did a read through calculator some years ago, but haven't done it since. So maybe I need to revisit that and do some calculations, and see how that stacks up. But I look mostly on that number one metric, and I think really for me, and maybe you'll agree with this, is when looking at something like this, is to find the most simple metric to follow that you possibly can. Right? I don't need to know all of the little bits within the Facebook ads dashboard, or all of the little bits within the Amazon ads dashboard, or whatever. I just need to know what money I've made, what money I've spent, you know, what money I can take home at the end of the month. To me, that's the number one thing. And of course, you need to look at things in a bit more detail at times, but 90% of the time, just knowing that, I think, is the most important thing.
That is so refreshing to hear you say that because I'm the same way.
Good, good.
I when you're people always say, well, you need to calculate your read through and you need to know how many pages and blah blah blah, and I'm like, I don't care. I
Yeah,
just want to know, did I make money today? Did I lose
yeah,
money
yeah.
today?
And I
So
think you can see that on the reviews. This is something I would say. If you're going through and all of your books have a similar amount of reviews through the series, I mean, obviously they're going to get less and less because the ones at the end of the series have been out less for less time than the ones at the start. But if they're going through if they've all got a decent amount, you're thinking, yeah, people are clearly reading through the series here. I can tell that they're reading through. And also with pre-orders, if you set up your next book, you put it on a pre-order, people start buying it, you're like, yeah, these people
yeah.
want the next book, right? That's a clear sign of read through. But yeah, when people there's that calculation, isn't there, that you can say how much each, like the lifetime value of a reader, which, as I say, I haven't done for quite some time.
Well, it's I'm with you because there's a lot of metrics out there, and I'm not a numbers guy, and I like you said, spend, earning, and whatever's left over. That's the number that with. I think all of us, no matter what they say, what they're looking at, that's the bottom line. We're always looking at is whether you made money this today or not. So
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, that's it. That's it. That's the most important thing. That's what keeps the
yeah.
lights on, isn't it?
So you mentioned KU ads and Facebook ads. Is that all that you're hammering on those advertisements, driving everything to that
I
Amazon?
do Facebook ads
Okay.
exclusively. I started that about 2 years ago. I like I said to you about a few minutes ago. I started off when I did this trying everything. Right, BookBub, take some money. Amazon, take some money. You guys, take some money. Um, but I found it really complicated to keep a track of what was working and what wasn't, for obvious reasons, because there's loads going on. So I realised that I like the Facebook ads dashboard the best. All the territories are on one screen. It's all in pounds, so I didn't have to do any conversion of currency. Um, it just seemed to me to be the most logical one to set up. So I just went deep on that and worked out how to do that and how to how to do that well, and that has worked for me. I think there's a lesson there about doing one thing well is better than doing four things not very well, particularly if they're going to cost you loads of money to try. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, that works for me, and I've built quite a simple system and just keep working on it, and yeah, and keep watching that top line and that bottom line, and see where we get to.
So you've seen the algorithm and Facebook change like we all have. Where are you at? Are you doing more? Are you doing video ads? Are you doing still ads? Are you?
I've tried everything. I haven't found video ads to work at all. They just got a load of clicks and no one bought anything. But I continue. I just try loads: carousel, still images, square images, longer images, pictures of the book, pictures of AI pictures of a woman running in a temple, pictures of whatever, all sorts of different things. I just try lots of stuff and then and see what works, and try not to think that you know better is the key with Facebook ads. You don't know anything, right?
Yeah.
Facebook will tell you whether it works or not. don't don't think that you know what people are going to like and what they're not going to like, right? Just create something, try it. If it works, iterate it, make 2 or 3 versions, make 3 or 4 more versions, whatever, and so on. And if it doesn't work, kill that one, cut that one off, and move on to the next one.
So are you using? I think Amazon has a feature where they can see where the ad is coming from.
Yes,
Are
the
you using
affiliate
that?
links. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was called affiliate links. It's something else now, isn't it?
yeah,
Like a tracking link.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they're essential. They're really, really useful to know where the money's going, because otherwise you wouldn't know. People talk about the cost per click, as I'm sure you know, and that to me isn't a particularly useful metric either, because they, I don't really. It doesn't matter to me how much it costs for the person to get to the page. It matters to me whether they buy the book or not, and you don't know that unless you've got that Amazon data.
Now, how do you differentiate between whether they bought the book or whether they read it in KU?
Because within the calculation that I do, I've got the average number of KU page reads per book. I think for my book it's 400 and something. So I can tell at the end of the week if there's whatever number of KU reads there have been that week. I divide that by 400 and something and have a number of downloads. It's approximate, of course, because there'll be people who didn't read them all during that week or just started, or there'll be people who gave up halfway or whatever. But it's an
Yeah.
approximation that works for the purpose of saying whether the ad is good or not.
Now, do you ever look at the what Amazon pays you for a book in KU versus what you make selling it for full price and
Mm.
think, what am I doing here? Why am I losing money or
Yeah,
is
it's certainly less that Amazon pay the KU read is certainly less than it would be if it were a full book. If it were sold by the sale, but I believe they sell more of them because of that. So it's it's a balancing act, isn't it?
yeah.
You've got quantity over the price that you want for it. Um, yeah, it's a difficult decision, but it works for me, and so for now it's yeah, it seems to do well. I think there's a benefit also to sending the traffic to Amazon, because they then recommend it to people. They see that it's selling. They recommend it to
Yeah.
people that will like it, and all of this. They're very good at that. They're very good at recommending books that they like, that they think are doing well, and then you get more reviews, and then it gets higher up in the charts, and it's all just a just a cumulative effect of different things that you see more because it's all going to one place, in my
Yeah,
mind at least.
and you do have really good reviews. I was looking at your books earlier
Thank you.
today. Um, so what are you doing are you just advertising and what are you doing to collect those reviews?
I I have a thing in the back of the book that says, "Would you consider reviewing this?" So every so often I'll email and ask for a review, but not that much, to be honest. Not a great deal. I feel like the most thing I can do is to put my book in front of the person that will like it. Everything
Right.
else is out of my hands, right? They want to review it, great. They want to share it with their friends, brilliant. They want to buy the next one, brilliant. Ultimately, if I get that book in someone's hands and they choose not to go and buy the next one, I can't do anything about that, right? All my
Right.
job is done. They've given it a go.
Yeah.
They've given it a go.
Yeah.
That's fine. My job is just to get that book to them, and hopefully they enjoy it. I don't think reviews, once you get over a couple of hundred, that it matters as much as people suggest it does. And I don't know what your opinion is on that. I think if you have a book that has not very many reviews, then of course that's bad. But I think if you've got a couple of hundred and it's been out for a while, people are like, hey. I think the number means less, I suppose, once it gets
Yeah.
to a certain figure.
I saw, when I was in KU before, I would do a lot of countdown deals and giveaways and book bubs and that kind of thing. And when you put that book in front of more people, you get more reviews. That's where I got most of my reviews, was when I
Mm,
was doing, a lot of the free giveaway stuff. And, people would come in and pick up the book. And then, because you're putting it in front of so many more eyeballs with
yeah.
those free deals, and so people would, I think they said what is it, 1 in 100 leave a review.
Yeah, it's not very many.
So
It's not very many.
yeah,
No, that is true. That is true. I sometimes question whether they give you the read through that you want, though. Although, as I said, I didn't calculate it. I have seen that quite often that can cause a real spike. So you'll have one book with 10,000 reviews and another with like 500. I've seen some authors when I've been looking at people authors' pages, and I'm thinking they've just done a couple of book bubs here because
yeah.
that's why they've got that. Because the readers haven't sort of continued over. But yeah, that is a good way. I've got a book club coming up in December, which will be great with my Arc Files book, the first in the series, which I'm excited about. It's been the first one in about a year. I don't do them very often, but yeah, that should be good.
Yeah, that's it's always difficult to get on there. I think the international ones are pretty easy,
Mm,
but the United getting one with the United States and international are more difficult. And
yeah,
for those of you who
yeah,
don't know what BookBub is, it's a giant list. Go to bookbub.com and sign up. Pick your favorite genre. They email you every day books that are free or on sale in that genre, and you can go out and just load up your Kindle and your reading device with all kinds of books. So,
yeah,
people
yeah.
come in there and they buy your book, and it doesn't always mean that it's going to get read either, because it gets way down in that reading list, and people are
That's
always
true.
adding to their reading list.
That's true. It's like like with any marketing thing, right? There's a dozen different ways. There's loads of different things to do. So I feel like it's just one of the tools that we
Yeah,
can use, to one of the levers that we can pull to bring people into our series, and for that it works well. It works well. But as you say,
absolutely.
there's a lot of things that can stop it being as effective as you might initially think it is.
So we've hit that time. We're about 40, 50 minutes in. So my last question to you, and this is my signature question: what do
Oh,
you want readers to take away from your books?
oh, nice, nice. For me, it was that sense of adventure that I experienced in 2011 going to India for the first time that I've tried to pull into each of my books. Whether they're in the International Detective series, which is a slightly anxious, everyman style detective being sent to the opposite side of the world to find a missing person, or whether it's in my Eden Black series, which is sort of missing manuscripts, ancient curses, secret civilizations, a bit more action adventure sort of style. Whatever flavor of that you like. I love the idea that you open that book and you are somewhere new, and you're seeing something exciting, and you're taken away from whatever your current surroundings involved, and you come on an adventure with me and my characters. So that's what I hope to achieve. And if that worked and that sounds like something you want, then my books are available on Amazon and wherever you get your adventures.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap for this episode of Plot Recon, where thrillers get tactical. Thanks to Luke Richardson for taking us across continents through archaeological mysteries and inside the engine of the KU driven thriller business that keeps readers turning pages and coming back for more. If you're new to his work, start with the Arc Files from the Eden Black series, or Lies Cost Lives in the Leo and Allison International Detective line. Two strong entry points into the world that Luke builds. You can find more about Luke, his books, and his global adventures at lukerichardsonauthor.com, and follow him on the socials for updates on new releases. If this episode hit the mark, share it, leave a review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And check out the merch section at evangraver.com. Grab a book, a shirt, a mug, or a sticker, and help me keep Plot Recon flowing. I am Evan Graver. Thanks for listening. Stay sharp, write hard, and keep your fiction tactical.